is, as a trustee, will you be an advocate for making CMC a smoke-free campus? We'll begin with Mr. Craig Gilbert.
Well, I sort of like the way we're doing things in terms of having smoking areas away from the buildings right now. I am not too strong on heavy-handed approaches. My preference is education. And I think that if we can talk actively at the college about diet, about things that you can do for your own health, the effect that the smoke can have on those around you, that sort of thing, and talk about ways to quit, that is much more my preference. And I say that as a reformed smoker. I smoked until I was in my mid-30s, and I'm going to tell you, quitting was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. And it was so hard, I had to do it over and over and over. And I even lasted a year once, and then on a New Year's night, had a cigarette, and there I was again. I managed to do it without patches and any kind of assistance. I got smarter in my habit. Eventually, I began to anticipate all the ways that I'd fallen from my own grace. And I think that's the kind of answer I would prefer, that driving people away from the college who are determined to smoke and just having an ironclad policy, I don't think respects the person and their process. I'd rather be proactive in helping them choose not to smoke.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Rogers?
Yeah, I would not be an advocate of a smoke-free campus either. I think there are students that would not come to the college if they couldn't smoke somewhere. But we need designated areas for smoking. And it's a sore topic with tea because of our business in Palm Springs. There's a 3 doors down, there's a smoke shop with cigars and stuff. And you don't want that coming into your facility. So I'm really, kind of anti-smoking myself. It's driven by an outside venue. But if we can keep smoking in a particular area, and I know even the offices of governmental offices in California, you have to be 20 feet from a door, staff or whatever, before you could be smoking. No, I'm not for a smoke-free campus.
Thank you. Can I answer?
No, it's not your turn.
We'll go to Ms. Mary Lombardo first.
I am also anti-smoking. With that said, though, as a dental hygienist, I do educate patients about not smoking and the dangers that it does have on periodontal disease and teeth and stuff. But I can't make them quit. They have to choose it. And for them not to come on campus because they can't quit right now, I'd like the designated areas for them until they can get through it. If they choose to, that is their choice.
Thank you. Ms. Rita Ramirez?
Well, I've never smoked. I've never had a cup of coffee. Okay? And I've never had a drink. So, but that's a personal decision. And I certainly wouldn't tell coffee drinkers that they can't have their coffee in the morning because some of them need it. And I would say to you, to be fair to the entire student enrollment, there would have to be a place for those who would like to smoke and should have the freedom to smoke without any incrimination. But being a smoke-free campus should be around the buildings because of the fact that you can, for those of us who don't smoke, we can smell it right off the bat. And it does affect us. But let's be fair to everyone. It's not just a question of one saying you can't do it. It's a question of whether you don't want to do it. So I know that we have a policy of no smoking around the buildings, which I think is good because in a classroom it stays. But there should be a place on the campus for others who have and want to smoke. Just because I don't doesn't mean that I should be the judge for each and every one of you. And that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 2. Many college boards statewide provide health care benefits for their members at a great cost to the taxpayer, including Copper Mountain College. Specifically, CMC provides health care benefits for board members costing over $50,000 combined or more annually. With the financial challenges facing our district, would you be willing to forego district-sponsored coverage to protect course sections for students? Any clarification needed for this question? Saying none, we will begin with you, Mr. Dick Rogers.
I understand now that there's going to be quite an increase for everyone. If, for example, if I wanted a PPO policy, I'll be paying $1,400 a month for that, and it looks like that's probably what I'll be doing. I've been talking with my wife, and we may well pursue a Blue Cross program. I'm at the age where I could get Medicare and get a supplemental policy, but my wife is younger, and I'm just not sure what we're going to do at this time. Okay, so I didn't answer directly, but indirectly.
Thank you. Ms. Mary Lombardo?
When I decided to run for Copper Mountain College Board, I was not aware of any benefits. And up to today, I have not been handed any information about benefits. Would I be willing to forego? Yes, I would.
Thank you. Dr. Rita Ramirez?
Well, I forego Medicare. I paid in for 10 years, and when I found out that my coverage would be better under the district, I called up and said that I was not going to be taking Medicare, even though I had paid for it, because I felt that the district was giving me the coverage. Okay, when I retired, because I had the golden handshake, I had insurance. But when I turned 65, there was no more insurance for any of us. So somebody said to me, well, you have insurance. I said, no, we don't have insurance when we retire, unless you are old enough to take it through Social Security. I had to pay out of pocket for 10 years because teachers are not included in Social Security and Medicare. However, when I did become a trustee, I decided that that was my privilege. The salary that we receive is less than $300 a month to be a board member, okay? And I hate to tell you, but there is no way I have enough money to be able to cover my medical. So I'm grateful that I have it. Because I forsake the other, and I thought other people who may need Medicare, let them use it since I am a trustee. Now, if I were to lose, then I will go back to my Medicare and say, okay, I need you now. But I do not have double coverage at all. It's either one or the other, because it's not fair, okay? And that's where I stand.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Gilbert?
It's an interesting question, because I think something that happens across the country is you have people who reach retirement age and have a lifetime of experience that they want to continue to bring into public service. And they find healthcare benefits that come through the employers, through the boards, to be very helpful. And as you said, you get very little to serve on a board. Now, I don't think that anybody is in this for the money. You're in it because it fulfills personal needs that you have. My wife is a school teacher in the district, so I'm on her insurance, and I'm therefore Medicare plan A or B, I forgot now, but I have Medicare as well. So if it's creating a significant hardship on the college, I would think about opting out. I'd have to look at it very closely. But I think philosophically, I would think twice about penalizing people who bring their experience into positions like this. I don't have a black and white philosophy on this. I would have to consider it closely. But I think my position is that I could do without it. And if we could hire another professor, if we could offer more courses, then I'll go ahead and fall on the grenade.
Thank you.
The next question is a follow-up question to the last one. Do you think that this is something that should be changed statewide? If so, do you think that if our board members voluntarily forego their benefits, that other board members in similar positions will follow their lead? We'll begin with Ms. Mary Lombardo. Sorry, is there any clarification needed?
You know, I don't know much about the plan, is my question. Is it the same insurance throughout all the community colleges, or is it an individual one that is purchased just for this college? So I don't have much information to go, but I think this is where it's going to be leading to. Yeah, we have to cut somewhere. And I know sitting in a board meeting that the faculty and the staff have opened up negotiations about their health care too. So I know that is an issue that they have to start working on.
Thank you. Dr. Rita Ramirez?
I can tell you the answer is no. Okay? And the reason why is that we're talking about let's say approximately 107 community college boards. And a lot of the people that I have met since 1999, because that's the first time that I sat on the first board, and I met them. The only thing that they were willing to do was they were willing to serve on any committee that they needed to be served. They would travel and not get paid for gas mileage or for hotel. All that is out of pocket, okay? So the only thing that we ever received, and that they told me the first year that I was on, was thank God we have health care, because I don't know if I could afford being a board member. So I would say to you that just because one board would be willing to do, the rest would not follow, okay? Because we do a lot out of pocket that has nothing, that has to do with our job and the salary that we get, if you want to call it the salary of $300 and less, and that's before they take taxes out. So we're talking 250, 200, whatever, is what we get a month.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Gilbert?
Yeah, I have to return to the idea that what bothers me at the core of this is that we're spending less money on our students, we're spending less money, we're talking about spending less money for insurance, for trustees. There's this idea that when I went to school, community college was free, the Cal State system was well under $100, and the UC system that I went to was just over $100. The 1960s education plan was a full page and a half. You know, this is a major change, and we're not just seeing education degraded because the money isn't coming here as it should, because every dollar invested in education in our community college system returns $4 to the state. But we're seeing it in every area. Our roads are not as good as they used to be. Our public services don't have the funds that they used to have. And so we're being squeezed tighter and tighter and tighter. And so there's this kind of false dichotomy that says, why don't you on the Board of Trustees give a little bit more and that'll be good? Why don't you students give a little bit more and that'll be good? And why doesn't local government give a little bit more and that'll be good? How much should we be squeezed is the question I want to ask back. And before I would support something like this, I would want to really look at the ramifications throughout the state. And I'd want to see where the money that we're not spending goes, because I have a hunch it may not really be going to the students in the classrooms. If that's the case, whose nest are we feathering? I think maybe it's time to say no to this sort of squeezing, no matter how nobly phrased the question.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Rogers?
Well, I've been to not very many, but I've been to some statewide trustee conferences. And we're really in the minority of a lot of the districts. And to explain that, I'll say like LACC, Los Angeles Community College District, have lifetime health benefits. So even if you work there until age 55, you've got it for the rest of your life. And it's causing quite a problem for them because they are over $100 million in retiree health benefit that they haven't paid for yet. It's a pay-as-you-go type program. But ours is pretty minimal compared to a lot of the districts in the state. And I don't think if we changed here, it would have one iota difference in the state.
Thank you.
Question 5. CMC is considered to be a 2-year college. However, many students have to stay more than 2 years due to the way classes are offered. What do you plan to do to address this issue? We begin with Dr. Rita Ramirez.
Okay. Okay. It depends how you do your schedule and how astute you are in your major, but I will tell you right now that when I went to Chapman University, one of 32 that was honoring, I never had a counselor or an advisor that told me anything, okay? So it was all up to me. The result of that is I sat down and looked at the catalog, noticed that classes were offered every other semester or every other year. I did my BA in 3.5 years without summers. I started my master's degree in my second semester of my senior year, right along with my teaching credential, and I left Chapman with my BA and 1 unit left for my master's and my teaching credential. Many times, classes are not offered because of the question of economics, but sometimes maybe it's not being offered because it's either not in the program or because it's not affordable to have a full-time professor for that particular area. So what I would say to you is, we look at the transfer requirements, we look at programs as to what classes need to be offered, and then the question is enrollment. I speak in behalf of foreign languages. Trying to teach Spanish 3 and 4 without a following from 1A, 1B, 2 is very difficult because I taught all the levels of Spanish, and it was like pulling teeth and saying, you need to take that. If you're going to be a teacher, you need to, and it was like fighting with the administration. I speak from experience, saying, I need to teach this class. Sometimes the enrollment's not there.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Gilbert?
Governor Brown just signed a bill that is essentially an extension of the basic skills act that we've been working with in the system for a couple of years now. And it's essentially this, that students are to have plans built with counselors as soon as they enroll. And these plans are educational plans that talk about first, what do they need in terms of placement? Do they have the basic skills courses that they need? Secondly, what is the best plan to take courses to get you to your degree or certificate or ready for transfer within the least amount of time? It's the idea of supporting the achievement of goals more than the accumulation of units. And this is going to be a challenge to the system. Even with the passage of Proposition 30, it's going to be a challenge because this is going to mean that a more active role for counseling, and all of this has to be tied to the offering of courses, the scheduling of courses, to make sure that we can deliver on the plans that the students have agreed to. One of the factors in it is online assessment, so that everybody can be assessed and we can look at the progress they're making going through. Teachers are going to have to, classroom instructors are going to have to do more active advising. It's just simply how it's going to be. They're going to have to step up because we're not going to have the funds to hire all that many more counselors. But there's going to have to be a larger role for counselors, a larger effort put into helping people get through in the least amount of time and achieve their goals. And the basic belief is that if that's accomplished, it'll save some money along the way, and it'll get people into jobs and get them into whatever their goals are. So that's where it is right now. It's honoring the governor's newly signed bill.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Rogers?
Yeah, years ago when I was in student services, we had a board across, we go into a large room and try to balance all of these classes so that you could get the general ed that you needed in an appropriate time frame. It's more difficult now, and a lot of it is derived too from this student success task force that worked on the model that was just signed by the governor. And there are things in there that we're going to have to take a good look at, because there's going to be priorities on who can enroll. A lot of it has to do with student services and advising, and advising is going to be a real problem. There are things that probably most of you are not even aware of. If you hire a counselor, it doesn't count as an instructor, and they put you out of balance with what's called the 50% rule, where you've got to have 50% of your structure of your money going into classroom instruction. So I don't see where we're going to just get a pile of counselors in here if we had the money. I think a possibility might be faculty advisors, and I think the faculty are probably going to be taking a larger role in advisement process. But we've got to look at that entire bill that was signed, and I even understand that priority for registration 2 years from now will be transfer students. And as the pot gets smaller, as far as money is concerned, it's going to be more and more difficult. And I don't think we're going to solve it just by saying, yeah, you're going to get through in 2 years. I was the 8-year program, but so I have a little more flexibility in this.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Mary Lombardo?
I have a few points on this. The Student Success Act that was passed did say that if you have 109 credits, you are at the end of the registration line.
Yep.
So just by that, you're going to move ahead, and you're going to be able to get those classes because you're more focused, you know what you want, versus the ones that aren't sure, you still can be in the community college, but you're going to be at the end. So I think that's going to help a little bit. I had a lot of information, obviously, over these last few months that I was reading, and I actually read that in 1960, the Master Plan for Higher Education for Community Colleges guaranteed that you would have a quality education, you would have affordable, and access to all. And the one thing I couldn't find was that you're going to get it in a 2-year term. So it wasn't promised back then that I could find, and so to promise it now is very difficult in the times that we're having. Now, as a student advocate and a mentor to many students, what I empower them with is, what can you do as a student? And you have to get organized if you're not already. You have to know your registration dates, November 28th. Be there to get your classes, but meet with your counselor. We're talking about counselors. You know you're going to need to see them. You meet with them early. I know there is a waiting line to get in, but that's your job to find out, to get in there. And then some classes are on a cycle, so you have to meet with them to know when you're exactly going to be taking that class, or you're going to miss that year. So, yeah, it's going to take more than 2 years, and wait till you transfer, it could even take longer. It's the times right now, and the schools are crowded.
Thank you. I believe I skipped question 4, so I don't know if it's back one slide. Question 4 is no longer on.
Yeah.
Then, if you could just continue to question 6.
On October 29th, 2012, the bus stop is being relocated. How will you help disabled students receive adequate transportation to their classes from the new bus stop?
Clarification. Where's the new bus stop?
The new bus stop is
It's the new bus stop is located now down near phase 3, where in front of Bruce's, right east of Bruce's.
You're saying where faculty offices are? Is that one of them?
I think some, I don't know if faculty, I know that's where like student services is.
Okay, level 2?
It's on phase 3.
Is it on 3 now? Is
Yeah.
it the new one?
It's the new one.
Okay, but it used to be on 2.
Yes,
Wait, okay,
it
I
did.
mean, that's the one I recognize.
Yeah.
And where is it in number 3?
It's right east of Bruce's, in the parking lot.
It's a new parking lot down
In
there.
the
Yeah.
new one.
Near student services.
I would assume.
Okay.
I have one question about that too.
Yeah.
What is the transportation? Is it a
We're talking about the public transportation. The MBTA does transport students directly to phase 2, but I believe the reason why this question was asked is that they now are moving it to phase 3, which is going to pose some difficulty for disabled students.
getting
Because
up?
because there are no classrooms located in phase 3. They are all located in phase 1 and 2.
So are you talking about the sidewalks not being for disabled, or are you just talking about the bus itself arriving?
I think the question is that since it is being located, disabled students will have to travel a much farther distance in order to reach their classrooms. And how would you provide more additional help for those disabled students, if any, to help them with the extra distance they'll have to travel down?
So my assumption is that the barriers are the sidewalks and is that what you were
It's
saying?
a much further distance.
Well, I'm not talking about distance, I'm talking about sidewalks. I mean, are the sidewalks too steep, or are there steps, or what are we talking about? Are we talking about architecture?
I'm not sure on that one. I think it's
Okay.
mainly that I didn't write this question. This was a
Okay.
question from the audience, and I think they were referring to the distance. If anyone can correct me on that,
Right now, my understanding is that the transportation that they have for students, not the MBTA, but like the cart that they can use to transport students from their classes to the bus stop is out of service, and they haven't been able to get it back into service to transport students to get them to the bus stop. So I think the question is, will there be any support in fixing that issue?
Well,
Please.
we have the Disability Act that says we have to provide accessibility to disabled students. So by law, we're required to look into this in regards to that fact, okay? Now, because I don't know enough, I know where this level 2 was, I don't know where level 3 is. If there was a question of sidewalks being a barrier, or the steepness, or because there's steps, or no curbside, or whatever it is, that is something that by law, by the state, requires us to take care of. If you're simply saying that they don't have transportation, I don't know what you're talking about, per se, because when I have seen the students on level 2, I've never seen them have difficulty. And so I don't know exactly what we're saying or what you're asking. But by law, we are required as a board to make certain that any barriers that would prevent a disabled student from receiving accessibility to their classes has to be taken care of.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert, and I apologize, we should have started with you.
Oh, that's all right. When I lost a portion of my hearing, that opened up some real doors for me. I had to fight with the idea of how do I ask for help and not feel embarrassed, and not feel ashamed. And that has been a significant struggle for me. And when I decided that I would run for the board, part of the decision that I made is that if there's anywhere that is accepting of people with disabilities of any kind, it is academia. That we make sure that if you have trouble seeing very well, we'll make sure that we give you enlarged print. If you have problems focusing in class, or if you have learning disabilities, we'll give you note takers and computers and whatever it takes to get you through and get you to the point where you can succeed. And I think the same thing has to be true for people who are in chairs or who have great pain in walking. It's a problem that can be solved, and maybe it can be solved through access. I mean, we have students who take notes in class. Maybe we can have students who meet the bus and push a wheelchair or show up with a little tram or something that can help. I don't think we have to invent the wheel here. What we have to do is state a willingness to be concerned and to be active in helping this college provide a solution. During CMC Days some years back, the students with disabilities had all of us sit in wheelchairs who were willing to do it and take those wheelchairs up the ramps. That made a lasting impression. My arms burned for days going up, and coming down, the speed of those wheels caused my hands to burn for days. We need to be able to maximize the opportunity for our students here. We will do it.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Rogers?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a catch-22. I understand they moved the bus stop just this past week, and primarily because of a danger with the buses coming in there and people walking across in front of them. So they put it in a locale where there is not that congestion. I can recall being on campus and one young man, I think his name was Brian, that could just barely get around, and he was so stubborn he'd be pushing himself up that walkway, and he'd say no, he didn't want to help, and I'd just push him up there anyway. It just something that needs addressed as far, and what they're talking about is the distance and just the location of it. And I know the ramps are ADA compliant, except perhaps one that they're working on. Nevertheless, there needs to be a method, and I think you have an excellent idea there. Maybe we could have even a student government, or perhaps even, we've got DSPS funds. Maybe some of that could be allocated to an individual that could push a wheelchair up the ramp to it. I know it's a real problem, no doubt about it. But there are some solutions, and we'll just have to work on it. And I would start with the DSPS department.
Thank you. Ms. Mary Lombardo?
I think I would approach it by going to the MBTA to find out why can't they do 3 different stops on the campus, and then start from there. And find out why not. It doesn't cost any more money, but like you said, there might be some safety issues, but let's work them out so that they can be dropped off at 3 different ones. And if I don't get any feedback from them, I would use my local representative, Paul Cook, to help me out. And that's what some benefits are, that we're active in the community, just to get some answers if it's at that level where they want. So that's how I would approach it.
Thank you. So at this time, we will hear the closing statements from each of the candidates. If any of you would like to readdress any of the previously asked questions, feel free to do so now. And we will begin with Ms. Mary Lombardo.
Hold on. I'm not ready. That came quick.
You can start with me.
Okay.
So she can have time.
And then I'll go. Okay. Is that okay?
Okay, we'll start with Dr. Rita Ramirez-Dean.
I thank you for being here. I hope that you have heard us and understood our feelings toward our college and why we're running. And for you to know that your education is our priority and that students matter. And the needs that we want to meet are those needs that are yours, not ours. We're here for you. And so I would hope that you would understand the love that we have for you and the willingness to stand up and be counted, to make our college the very best that we can, to meet the needs as it is in the case of the disability student. But know that we are a part of the community. I have lived here 40 years and I came as a bride. I did not know what 29 pounds was at the time. Now I do. But please remember that in regards to our profession and our love for education, you come first. That's all that matters when you vote, that your needs need to be met, and that's why I'm running, because I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Gilbert?
I finished my career, my full-time career as a division chair of communication and fine arts. I had that position for 3 years. And while I was there, I had to see to the scheduling of about 105 classes. And that ranged through all the classes of communication, from speech to literature, all the writing classes, foreign languages, and believe it or not, the Bell Center, helping to get the gym up and going, working with the faculty that we needed to have to do that. And during that time, I got a wonderful amount of insight into how our college works in terms of this sort of quasi-administrative role I was in. I was able to see up close how decisions are made and how we work through problems together, and it was great fun. I almost hated to retire. The thing is that when you sit down with a good board and you have a college that you love and you feel strongly about the mission, I think there's a real potential to sit down and get things done together. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing. I know how to work on a board. I've been on the board of the National Park Service. I've been on the executive committee of the State Academic Senate. I've been on the local school board. And I've certainly was on a very active board with our local Senate. This is the kind of work I enjoy and that I look forward to doing. And it seems to me the right place for me to be after years in the classroom and years of serving this profession that I care so much for. So I ask for your vote, I ask for your support, and I ask for your trust. I won't disappoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dick Rogers?
I'd just like to mention that probably the biggest thing with me, we're fiscally conservative. I am as a board member, and we need to make all of our money stretch as far as it can go. And one item that we've been working on lately is a refinance of the bond measure, which may save the taxpayers from either $500,000 to $750,000. And we don't need to do that. It doesn't benefit us at all, but it helps the people in the community. And as we have some pretty historical low bond rates, and if they stay at that level, then we'll pull the trigger on it and refinance at considerably less than the measure of the fee bond that's out there, and save the community a lot of money in the process. I don't know how many people know what our job is as a trustee. One of our primary jobs is to hire a great superintendent, which we did. We're working on a new mission statement right now. That's another job of the board. Accreditation oversight, that's something we really need to stay on top of, and I think the instructors are doing a great job working in the field of accreditation, doing the reviews that are required, SLOs that you know about, student learning outcomes. Those are the types of things that we do typically as board members, and I just enjoy working with a group. I do well in a group setting, easy to get along with, and non-confrontive in most situations. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Mary Lombardo?
I'm going to close tonight with a story. For the last 6 years, I have visited over 20 college campuses with my family. I just keep remembering this one day. We were visiting my family in North Carolina, and we decided to go take a tour of Duke University. We researched it. We had questions to ask the admissions counselors, the students. The visit went well, and we all agreed it was an amazing place. Besides the fact that it cost a lot of money and it was very difficult to get in. But that's not what I remembered the most about that day. A friend had texted me and asked me if I could go check out a college for their daughter, Campbell University. It was only an hour away, and my son navigated us through the back streets or back hills in North Carolina with his GPS, and then we arrived there. And we went right to the admissions building, and we asked if we could speak to someone about the college. So she sits us down in a sitting room, and 3 minutes later, a man comes out, and he introduces himself as the Dean of Admissions. Now, I didn't have time to research this school. She just popped it on us that day, and so I didn't feel prepared. So I asked the first question that came to my mind. I'm from Yucca Valley, California, and why should my son come here? There was a 30-second pause. Then he replied, I don't know. No one has ever asked me that before. If I am elected to the Copper Mountain College Board, I promise you, if a student or a parent asks me why Copper Mountain College, my confident reply would be, for the small class sizes where the professors can invest in each student as an individual, for the abundance of qualified faculty, for the convenient location in the middle of the Morongo Basin, and all this for an affordable price. I know this to be true because my children and those students I have mentored have experienced and benefited from these exact things in the last 5 years, and that's what I'm committed to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's give our candidates a round of applause. Dr. Norton.
And could we also give our moderators, Melissa McPeter and Adam Pelosi, I'd just also like to recognize the ASCMC senators who are in the room, if you'll all stand up. And our ASCMC president. Thank you.
This concludes our 2012 Trustee Candidate Forum. I'd like to give special thanks to Dr. Wagner, Councilman Lombardo, Councilman Huntington, and retiring Trustee Owen Gillick. We appreciate your service. Thank you all.
Everyone, if you can leave your plastic, our Access Club is collecting plastic this week, and they're going to, the money that they raise from this event will fund scholarships for their students, so please leave your plastic.
That could end that. That's true. I don't know. Actually, call them on their website, stuff like that. They should have a website, yeah.
Are you there for the rooftop stuff?
One of those.
That's me. They said, forget it. We only talk about this in the water. We're not going to publicly
Really good.
They said, this is no set of judgment. It's good.
I was at the
Yeah.
really
They got tired. It's not an efficient thing. There's all types of rules. And then going back to the
It's not that simple. She put Caroline copies and so my doctor said, instead of judging the performance,
You guys are like,
I mean, they are. But many things. You get.
I believe so.
Are you sure?
Why not?
Go for it.
What are they going to say? No, be gone with it. Be gone from me.
I will check Craigslist even though it is very sketchy.
Our questions are done. Check research. Two. Research if you do go for an interview.
Oh, research.
Research person or research company.
Okay. What if I find a fake thing that I believe in and I'm just there?
Then you didn't research very well. Well, right? Some of my friends from high school, they became, they're learning to become directors and stuff, at like art institutes and stuff.
That's incredible. That's awesome. I'm happy for them. I just gotta figure out how to start. Well, good luck with your YouTube.